Hello, and welcome back to Tidbit of Torah. In Pirkei Avot, chapter 1, Shimon, the son of the famous sage Rabban Gamliel, used to say, all the days I grew up amongst the sages, arguing amongst the Beit Midrash, the study hall, and I have found nothing better for a person than silence. Yes, silence. Amidst all the noise of the study hall, just like all the noise of our children and our phones and our work and our home lives, nothing better for a person than silence. Just take a moment and chew on that and consider, what role does silence play in your life? How can it be a source of healing, grieving, celebrating, or recharging? I wonder how that might be for you. I know for me, silence can be challenging. We move so fast through our lives, and actually taking carving out space, even a little bit, that space between the black letters and the noise of our lives can be extremely difficult. But I know that when I do just take time to listen and be quiet and sit in silence, it can be so helpful and so healing, and really help me to actually listen better to the voices of the people that are in front of me, that I love and care about in my life, and also in my spiritual life. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov said, when a question about God comes upon you, be silent, and through that silence, your thoughts themselves will provide you with the answer to your problem. Eitan is trying always to remind me in services to extend the silence at the end of a prayerful song longer before we move on to the next page and the next prayer. And it's hard. Sometimes I feel that discomfort, as you might feel just sitting in the silence. But when I accept the silence, I actually realize how much more prepared I am to accept whatever is coming next, and to be able to just be more in tune with the needs of those in the room. And that is one of the things we learn in this week's Torah portion, Parshat Shmini, from the book of Vayikra. We encounter the tragedy of the death of Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Avihu, when the unimaginable happens to their father Aaron, and they are consumed by fire in the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and they perish. And the aftermath of this tragedy, how do we find Aaron, their father? It says, Vayidom Aharon, and Aaron was silent. Because honestly, after the death of two sons, how else could we be in that tremendous grief? But one of the things we also learn from this week's Torah portion is about how to respond, listen, and be silent with those in our lives who are feeling grief. In the third verse of chapter 10 of Leviticus, right after we learn of the deaths of Nadav and Avihu, Moses comes to Aaron, his brother, right after the deaths of his nephews, and says, this is what God meant by saying, through those near to me, I show myself holy and gain glory before all the people. And after that, how does Aaron respond? That's when it says, Vayidom Aharon, and Aaron was silent. So many of us had that experience where someone, when we are in a time of grief, comes up to us and says something that frankly isn't helpful to us in that moment. Something like, oh, don't worry, you'll get through this. Or, oh, count your blessings. Or, oh, your father was so old, you're so lucky that he passed away at an older age. Or, you're going to be fine, right? One of those statements which actually feels like is more for them than it is for us. When instead, how it might be different if they just came and said, hey, can I just bring you a cup of tea and sit with you? Or asked a question like, hey, I'd love to just sit with you. And if you feel comfortable, I'm wondering if you might be interested in sharing a little bit about your father or your son or your friend who I understand just passed away earlier this week. What if we just then sat and listened and allowed that person to be in whatever silent or memory space they were? And so I think this week's Torah portion is teaching us a profound lesson about trusting silence in our relationships, in our connections, in times of joy and times of grief, and being able to find a space for it, whether we're with young children or with older people, to be able to understand how we all need silence in our lives to recharge, but also just to be able to show up in the most compassionate, healing way for other people and for us ourselves. Shabbat Shalom.